What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Utica, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host Sean Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors in Long Island, New York. Sean, how we doing today, sir?
Man, great day. I'm super excited to talk to Brett. I know you two have had your personal phone call, so Brett and I don't think I've ever really talked one-on-one before, so I'm excited to have the conversation and get to know you a little bit better, Brett.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. I'm excited as well. Brett and I just had a Zoom call. I reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, want to connect?" And he's just a cool dude and just one of those guys. When you have a conversation with him, you can tell that he genuinely cares about what you got going on and to learn about you. So we're super excited. It's my pleasure to welcome Brett Young on the podcast today. Brett is the president and CEO of Erb and Young Insurance, based out of Orlando, Florida. Brett, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great, guys. Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For those who are just learning about you for the first time, why don't you introduce us to Brett?
Oh, that's right on the spot. The elevator invite.
That's right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, my name is Brett Young. I am one of three partners at Erb and Young here in Florida, based out of Florida. We've got 6 offices across the state, but I primarily work out of our office here in Orlando. I've been in the business for about 15 years in the insurance space. It's been longer than that actually, but 12 years in running this agency, this Scratch startup agency, which is cool that you guys were going to get to talk about that today. And I guess to give the listeners some background, my background prior to being in the insurance business was the network marketing space. I was in the network marketing space for an insurance product for 5 years, did that at a high level, really learned the ins and outs of leading a voluntary army. I'm a good insurance agent. I feel like I'm not the best, but I'm a great team builder. And that's what I love to primarily spend my time on. I think the industry is one that gives you an unbelievable opportunity for leveraged income, residual income. It's a product that everybody needs, and it's a price point that you can escalate. So I think it's one of those things that attracted me to the business. And I have 2 incredible partners, one of which is my brother, my blood brother. He is my younger brother. He's the basketball star turned insurance agent. And then I've got my brother from another mother, who was my older brother, who's not my blood brother, but I've known him for almost 20 years now, and I built that other business with him, and we've been ride or die ever since. That's Mr. Rod Erb. Sales extraordinaire. A gentleman has built big teams in the corporate side, and we have an affinity for that same team building aspect. So, I hope that gives you a little bit of background about me, and we're about a $45 million in premium agency. We do about 80% of that is personal lines, 20% of that is commercial lines, and about 40 team members.
Wow. Okay, so 80. I wasn't
Where do we
expecting
start?
45 million premium, 80 personal, 20 commercial. Tell me a little bit about that. Like when you guys first started the agency, was your plan to be 80-20, or did it just kind of happen? Like what did that whole process look like, and like what did the early days look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it always was planned on being a personal lines driven agency. We loved the idea of building a mousetrap to do volume and something that's extremely scalable. And so from a team building perspective, that was attractive to us. In essence, being able to take somebody that's below average, get them to average quick, and then be able to build off that. And if we can get average people to above average quick and being able to build that, because then we can replicate and duplicate fast. So I think the personal line side of the business is very attractive. Just in essence, it gives you a little bit more of a fundamental base to be able to execute on that, where commercial is a little bit more challenging and difficult in essence. But you can escalate the price point a lot better for commercial. They all have their pros and cons. So I think it was always meant to be a predominant personal lines agency. I will tell you, we are looking to try to get to 50-50. And we didn't start writing commercial till 5 years into the business. We didn't have the carriers, we didn't have the markets, we didn't have the expertise, So that's just not where we started. So it's a little farther behind the curve, and we're learning in that space and getting better. But I think inherently, what attracted us to the insurance space specifically, it was the personal lines model.
It makes total sense because I was just thinking about this the other day. It's funny. Up until a couple months ago, I thought I was a little more commercial. I'm actually just about 50-50. And I started thinking of like, man, what would be the most efficient for my agency from a volume standpoint, right? And you think about it, on commercial, it's so different because the process and procedure for every type of business is different. With personal and home and auto, generally the process and procedure is the same unless it's like real high value, right? But I could go on a contractor, right? Electrician versus HVAC versus plumbing versus roofer. All the questions are completely different. So they all need different training, So I completely understand why you went with that model. And I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was funny. I was literally just thinking about this the other day. But Steven, what were you going to say?
No, I just want to let's go back and open up the curtain a little bit to the early days, Brett. Was it the three of you that started the Scratch Agency together? Did they come on? Was it just you that started Scratch and then you brought the partners on? Talk to us about those early days that some of our listeners are in the trenches right now about and how that evolved to what you have today.
Yeah, man, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because you're talking to my people right now, which is awesome. So, I mean, it's easy to look at kind of the situation and go, okay, cool. These, 40 team members and X, Y, and Z, and I don't think we've done anything yet. I'm excited about what we're going to do the next 5 years. But candidly, you're always benchmarking, where you want to be versus where you are today. And so, especially from a scratch standpoint, it's very difficult sometimes to see where this is going to look like because the bending hockey curve is so significant in this business if you could stay there long enough. Borrowing from the hope of and the promise of the future is so valuable in coming back in today, especially scratch startups, because it's very, very difficult. So first of all, the listeners that are listening, I just commend you for your choice and your bravery to do something hard. And I will tell you, the fruit that comes from this business is everything that you think and want it to be first. But yeah, I got in the insurance business. I was in the network marketing space, decided that it was a price point that was too small, too low. I was in the AFLAC conversations with all of the employee benefit meetings at different companies. And I was, meeting people on their day off for lunch breaks because they missed the presentation for their employee benefit cycle. And it was just something I just wasn't really digging. It just wasn't scalable, like you said, Sean. I was looking for something that was scalable, that I could build teams into it. And so it just didn't fit that for me and my partner, Rod. And so when I got into the insurance space, I went and did what everybody did. I went and got a 220 before I knew anything about the insurance business. Failed the test twice. It took me 3 times to get my license. I think you had to pass with a 70. I got a 72. So I'm about as dumb and about as bad as you can get from an insurance perspective. But you know what? They call us all brokers. So, whatever. Took that, went and looked on Craigslist for a job because that's what all smart insurance agents do when they're looking for a job. They look on Craigslist. I got a 100% commission-only job at a boutique firm. Here it's actually in Celebration, Florida. They said, great, no problem. I'll give you a contract, 100% commission. Here's a laptop and no training. Go write some business. And that's what I did. I actually moved to that town with my newly married wife. She supported us for that 14 months that I was there. I was so broke that I couldn't afford a bed frame. I had a mattress on the floor. Here I am asking this woman to marry me and telling her that I'm going to take care of her and promise her the world. Couldn't afford an engagement ring and or a bed, and she stuck by me and said, you know what? We'll sleep on the floor. It's fine. And
that's
I made
when you know it's the one.
$13,000. That's right. I made $13,000 my first year. The way that I learned the business was I took home policies and I read them cover to cover, and that's how I learned the insurance space. And then I would come back and I would ask questions. So I didn't necessarily have this groomed training, but I had a fire and a desire to win, and that's way more important than any training program you could purchase or belong to. So for all you scratch startups that are out there thinking, I don't have all these resources, bells and whistles, make no mistakes. It's all just it's all dressing. It means nothing compared to the fire of you getting up every day and getting after it. So I did that for 14 months. I had a contract that potentially was going to give me some equity in the book. That's the reason I moved. That's the reason I took the gig. That's the reason I did 100% commission. That's the reason, because that's what I had done. I was entrepreneurial, right? That's the only thing I knew. Long story short, after 12 months, they changed that on me. I signed a 75-mile non-compete, but I didn't get my contract signed in regards to the equity in the book of business that I was going to have. So after the 12th month, when they knew that I wasn't going to starve and I was going to get renewals, they changed it on me. And so here I am facing down the barrel of this decision on what I was going to do. So I told my wife, I was like, you know what? It's all good. It's fine. You know, and I'll just get to this certain level that they needed to get me to just so I could start vesting, and would have been a fine deal. It just wasn't the deal that we discussed, right? And she said, absolutely not. So here she is, you know, supporting me through all this thick mess, and you know, listening to this guy who's got these big hopes and dreams, and you know, all this stuff that doesn't exist yet. And when faced with the decision to go somewhere else and start over, or deal with what it is and, you know, make a decent livable income this next year, she told me absolutely not. She goes, that's a character thing, that violates our principles. Absolutely not. I don't care if we have to start over, you're going to do it somewhere else. So she pushed me to leave and look for other opportunities. I went and looked at the big box shops because, of course, the problem is I'm at a small agency. So let me go to the biggest agencies because that's the fix to all my answers. And so I went and interviewed at all the big shops and all the big names that you would hear as far as corporate and stock exchange agencies all over the country, and I found that it was good cop, bad cop. It was the complete opposite of what I had known and wanted, and I didn't find that there. And at the time, my business partner, Rod Erb, wanted to do this with me because we had done everything together. His wife had come over to work with me at this other agency, along with a couple other people that we were building a team inside of that agency. Because at the end of the day, guys, I wanted to build a team inside of a business. I wasn't looking to start an agency. I wanted to build a team. That's what I love to do. I didn't want to necessarily build the roads. I just wanted to drive the car. And so when looking at these other opportunities after that, I found that in order to build the culture and the path to unlimited and giving people the opportunity to build the American dream and all the things that I believed in from the network marketing space, that was not going to be available at these places. And so Rod, who's in his infinite wisdom, looked at me and said, well, what happens if we just do it ourselves? And I laughed at him. I was like, no, you don't understand. Now, he's not in the business yet. His wife is in the business. She's licensed. He doesn't know anything about insurance. So he doesn't know about carriers. He doesn't know about, you know, the chicken and the egg conversation. He doesn't know what it's like to have two markets when you're going to get somebody who's got 30. He doesn't understand any of that. He's just, you know, it's ignorance on fire. And so, you know, I kind of rolled my eyes and was like, you don't get it, man. And he's like, nah, man, let's just figure it out. So long story short, we ended up figuring it out, and we joined an aggregator, and that aggregator's been great to us. It's been a very tough, you know, it's tough. You make trade-offs when you go that route, and it was. I've got great stories. I've got tough stories, but that's just the way that's the way it was. That our decision was we wanted to build a specific way. That was essentially the only way that we saw that we could do that at that time, but it put us in the game. And we had the markets and we had the options, but I mean, it was not without pain. The first year with three of us, because my brother came over, and so it was the three of us at the time. I snagged him out of college when he was ripe for the picking. Said, "Come do this stupid thing, and don't make any money." And it was great. So, but the first year we wrote 30 grand in rev, 30 grand in revenue between three people for the year. For the year, that's what we wrote. And we're looking at each other go, okay, let's scale this out over 5 years. What does this really look like? And it wasn't looking good. So, but we kept at it, and we made tweaks. And, you know, at one point, we were all doing something. We were all going out and getting business and bringing it back and writing it. So there was no segmentation of roles. So it wasn't working well. It was choppy. You know, we're working out of a bedroom in someone's house, and we're staying up till 10:30 at night, and we're all doing the same thing. Then we said, okay, well, what happened if somebody answered the phone, somebody went out and marketed, someone sold the business, and we segmented roles. That started to work better. We started to catch traction. We started to have some systems that were, you know, just us yelling across the room of, hey, let's change this. And we didn't write it down. You know, there's just all the crazy things that happen when you're brand new. And about 3 years into the business, we wrote, I think we were at like 130 in rev at that point in time. I mean, we were still not really taking a livable wage between the three of us. I moved back home with my parents, with my wife that first year. And then finally we were able to get an apartment after the second year. And then about 5 years into the business, we had done about $500,000 in revenue. And 7 years came along. We were doing $750. think about how long this is, right? Like in that the point in time, now we're starting to make some money. I'm making six figures at that point, but it took a really long time. And then we had our first acquisition, and we bought a book of business that was the same size as our business. So we, you had a $700,000 block. We bought one for 800. We wanted a diversification. We were in Orlando in Central, and we wanted a coastal book to be able to give us some diversification and higher premiums. And so I looked at probably 100 books for like 4 years and just vetted them and learned the ins and outs of what a good buy is, what makes sense. And it finally showed up. And when we made that purchase, in essence, it kicked off a really cool cycle for us. We had all sales people. We didn't really have a service team. At $500,000 in revenue, we had one person that was doing service and everybody else was doing sales. We were heavy organic sales. We still are to this day. We have like 20 agents that all do sales. Because, and we can get deep into that, but that's what you should be worried about. That's what you should be focused on. So, so let me land the plane. So we do the acquisition, we double in size, but it's an hour and a half away from where we live. And culture is what we had built the business on. We have ride or die team members that would bleed for this mission, for this opportunity, for the hope of what this will be one day. And that was really the power that we had in the early days. It was us against the world. It was like the Miami Heat, the hat I'm wearing right now. Like if you follow basketball right now, it's just like you're the underdog, and you're riding with people that believe in the underdog story and want to be on that story. Those are the people that you're looking for in the beginning, because those are the people that are going to help you build the business. And we had those, but we didn't have this in the new acquisition, and that culture was toxic. So it was the complete opposite of what we had, and it was the biggest threat. So what we did was we said, screw it. We rented a house on the beach in Melbourne for a year. We took out a 12-month lease. It was $4,500 a month at the time before inflation kicked in. That was a lot of money for us. And we would go back and forth every single week. And the three of us would toggle back and forth. Sometimes three of us were there for 3-4 days at a time. Sometimes one of us were there for 2-3 days at a time. But we were there every single week for 12 months. And we were absolutely fanatic about implanting and installing the culture program into this business, because we know if we could get that right, this would be a huge opportunity. And we did that. 12 months later, we had to fire some people. We let go of the people that didn't want to be there. We made some hires. We cleaned house. We reinstalled the program. We did events over there. We built relationships. We found the core leaders. And in essence, to kind of top it all off, we did a ride for culture, and to show the team and show the whole organization that we were committed to culture. The three of us grabbed mountain bikes. We weren't even road bikes. They were mountain bikes. And it was 75 miles door to door from Orlando's office to Melbourne's office, across the state. The three of us rode our bikes, and in 8.5 hours rode on the highway all the way across the state to the other office to show to the team that we were willing and committed to be able to do this thing in the long run. So an ice bath after that's kind of the end of that story, and that kick-started. But to give everybody perspective on where we sit in there now, so we went from 750 to now 1.5 million in revenue, and then over the course of 3 years, we went from 1.5 to like 4.5. And so the bending curve of what that looks like, if you would have talked to me when we did 30,000, we did 300, think about it, we wrote 300,000 premium the first year, right? Just this month, we wrote $1 million in new business. Think of the spread and the difference of what that is. You can't quantify what this business means if you're committed to it, and if you're engaged in the practice of building a team and building a business. Like, it's one thing to produce, but if you're in this business to start an agency, production is just one tier, right? The next tier is, how do I teach? And then the next tier is, how do I teach someone else to teach? And if you can solve that riddle and begin with the end in mind, you're in the best business on the planet.
Brett, are all three of you actively writing business?
So I'm not writing business. I haven't written a policy in like 3 years, probably 3.5 years. Yeah. I still have some commercial accounts that I work with that are dear friends, and that's just a commitment that I've made to them. My brother does not write business. My Rod Erb, who's the other third partner, is one of the best sales professionals I've ever known. He's incredible, and he's still engaged in the practice of writing business. He's not engaged in prospecting every day. He's running the whole sales side of our business for personal lines and commercial. But he runs some big accounts, and based on his network and based on what he's done previously in his insurance life, the fallout from that, he works on those $1 million accounts that may come in, or sometimes a little less than that. But he'll write some really big stuff for the agency and for him because I think he just loves it. But in regards to like prospecting and stuff, he's really focused on trying to take what he's done and what we've done and be able to teach other people to do the same thing.
Gotcha. What an incredible story that was. I just want to interject by saying this right here, that story that Brett just walked us through is the reason why we do this podcast. For those people that are
100%.
listening that are at 30,000 in revenue in their first year right now going, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to get to 40 employees like that. I'm never going to be able to get to the living wage and buy a bed or whatever those is. Like, Brett, thank you so much for sharing that and making it relatable. One thing I want to dive into is the acquisition and the cultural shift you had to make. For anybody that's either looking to build an agency with a strong culture or that's in an agency now that needs a cultural shift, what's step one? And what are some pieces of advice about culture?
Man, okay. So number one, we have a saying, we have a core leadership group, right? And our core leadership are people that live by the code. In essence, that's the culture. And so we've defined what that culture is. It's 3 pillars. It's showing up, activity, and personal development. In essence, we've defined our business as we're a personal development company that happens to sell insurance. So that's the fundamental culture that we want to breed. Some people have different missions. Our mission is in essence giving people tools to be successful in life. It has nothing to do with insurance. So find out first, what is your culture? What is the mission? What is in essence what you're doing to install? What does that program look like for somebody, number one? But then we have a core leadership group of people who live by that code. And a lot of times we see new members of this team looking to influence other people to live by that code and influencing other people to be part of that culture. And that's the number one mistake when you're trying to build culture, because the first step to becoming core, which is what we call it, is you have to be core, right? The biggest thing that you can do to influence culture is you be the culture, right? I don't want to be told how to live my life. I don't want to be told how I should act. I don't want to be told how I should operate at work. I want to look at somebody and just see what they do, and then I'll do it. If I respect somebody and they're doing the things that I aspire to do and they're getting the results that I aspire to get, I'm going to model them. Whether I subconsciously or consciously tell you about it, I'm going to model you. Now, they may not be ready in their part of their journey to do that because maybe they haven't hit a wall. Maybe they haven't hit rock bottom. Maybe they haven't hit a wall. Maybe they don't think they need help. Maybe they don't think it's important yet. But I promise you, if they continue to breathe, at some point they will. And amateurs convince, professionals sort. Right? Like if you start trying to convince people to be part of the culture and live by the culture, you lose. The biggest thing that you can do to answer that question, Stephen, is live by it yourself and do it before it matters. Like we do a summit every year where we get away off-site for 2 days and we do all personal development, no insurance. We get away, we bring guest speakers in, we have a blast. We spend all day sessions going heavy deep into tools and personal processes to be able to help somebody achieve at a higher level. We were doing that when it was just the 3 of us. We would, at $500, we'd rent a house or go to somebody's house, and we would do a session in the living room for 2 days. And we would have events planned about it. We'd go to the bar afterwards and have culture. But we did it, and the reason it was intentional, and I got goosebumps now because I'm telling you, man, I've lived this. The reason we did it is because we knew that we wanted to do it when there was 40 people. And if we are people of our word and we're people of integrity and we're people by character and we're beginning with what is going to be, it's called active faith. Participate in your own rescue, right? Faith is just faith, but active faith means I have to fucking do something about it, right? Mm-hmm. I have to do something about it. I have to participate in my own rescue. So when people want to talk about culture when they have 4 employees and maybe things aren't going well. And so-and-so's not showing up to work, and they have a bad attitude, and there's drama between 2 employees. It's like, no. The culture started before you ever hired them. What are you doing right now as a scratch startup that is going to set the groundwork and the framework for someone to be able to follow you? Not you tell them how they should be, but look at your example and fall in line.
If anybody's listening to this right now driving down the road, pull over and slow down. Because if I'm listening to that right now, I'm going 25 miles an hour over the speed limit, just ready to go. That got me fired up.
Yeah, talk to me about the culture, Brett. Like, I love everything you said there, and I think the summit thing that you do is, I mean, what a great idea. besides that, what other things are you doing within the agency to really build that culture? Are you doing
Sure.
like trips
Yeah.
or anything else like that?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's like I'll share with you what we do now, but I also want to preface to say this wasn't always that way. It's the concept, right? Because we all are working on limited budgets, We didn't have any of that shit, man. Like, we didn't have any of that. We couldn't outspend anybody. We had no money, like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there's no room for this stuff in the budget. I'm trying to feed my family. Get out of my parents' house at the same time. I was like, this is ridiculous, Like, so you're like, oh, I'm going to put on a summit for my team. It's two of us, Like, so I want to preface that and frame it to say, like, if you're listening to this, you're like, well, that doesn't apply to me because, it's just too hard to do. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be crazy. And like, we run a personal development call every week. So at Wednesday night at 9:00 p.m., yes, p.m., we run a voluntary personal development call. We have been running that call for almost 20 years. It was prior to the insurance business, right? And so we go through a book, and it's a chapter a week, and we discuss the chapter. One person introduces the leader. The leader facilitates the call for 30 minutes. Everybody participates and speaks up when they want to, and we're done at 9:30. Right? It's an outlet to get people engaged into the process of personal development. And for us, that's part of our mission. That's our culture. Like, practicing personal development and living at an extraordinary level in your own personal life is what we believe. It's what we want. It's what we do. And because in essence, that's what changed our life. That's what made an impact on me. So, in essence, every agency that's listening to this, your culture is just a reflection of you. That's just leadership in general, right? It's a mirror. But, so we run that call, and we've run it every single week. And sometimes we do bi-weekly if the book is smaller. But that has given people the opportunity to plug into something. And you'll have people that have been here for 4 years. They've never read a book. Well, they'll tune in for the call. Right? And maybe they don't even read the book, but they tune in for the call. So they're starting to get absorbed with it. They're starting to get inundated with it. They're starting to get osmosis with it. And then maybe the 5th year they go, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being where I'm at. I see this person got a promotion. This person got a promotion. This person's hitting their numbers. I'm not hitting their numbers. God, what's going on, guys? Like, how can I be better? And he's like, well, are you practicing personal development? Well, no. I'm on the calls. Okay, well, maybe you're on the calls. That's great. Well, maybe read this book, right? And now they start to read. Now they start to go to the next level. But they had to hang around long enough and see an example, and now they gravitate towards it, and now they're having success. I can tell you so many reasons and situations in our agency where people they shook our head and they said, this is woo-woo stuff, whatever, that's what you guys do. I'm here to sell insurance. I don't care about that stuff. It doesn't matter. And then they watch the other people who gravitate towards it, and they rocket launch past them. I get a guy that came into the business that had insurance experience, came into the business, didn't qualify in the comp plan for 7 months, which that's never happened. That's the worst it's ever been. Didn't qualify one time for 7 months. Okay? A day of decision happens. He changes. He says, no more. I'm done. He commits to personal development and all the things that we've talked about and plugs in. He has broken every premium record. He maxes out the comp plan every single month. He's written more autos. He's written more policies. He's written more premium. He's opened an office. He's starting his own agency within our framework here, starting very soon. He is living the life. He's living a completely different way than he was before. When you talk about culture, the people see that. They go, it's not just Brett saying this or Rod or Taylor. Now there's success stories within your agency that are now reaffirming what you have said. Because let's be candid, anybody that's listening to this, and you guys know this, if you have team members, they shake their head and they roll their eyes at you because it's your business. It's your agency, right? That you are biased in some sense. They know it. You could be a great person. I feel like they know that I care. They are going to look at what I say from a biased perspective, right? But once you start having people within your organization that start having success, you leverage those success stories, it's like gasoline on a fire because now it's self-evident. They're looking around going, well, yeah, Brett might be full of shit, but Eric, Chris, Amanda, Jessica, there's a pattern here. What is the pattern? Oh, they believe. And they're ingrained in the disciplines that they've said that are important. Mm-hmm. So now it doesn't matter what we say. Does that make sense? You have a living, breathing testimonial. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about building the team. Now, and I would assume that your philosophy from your first staff person that wasn't a partner, has changed from maybe the 40th person or whatever. But what are some tips and tricks and advice that you could give for maybe the one person that's looking to bring on their first employee, or someone that's looking to bring on their 10th employee, and building the team and advice around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. From a tactical standpoint, your first team members are going to wear multiple hats. Like to give a broad, here's the broad sense of the principle. You want to segment down. You want to segment down less roles. So what I mean by that is when somebody starts, they're doing 3 or 4 different roles, like they're doing 3 or 4 jobs. And as you scale, you want to get them down to 1 or 2. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So like when we first started, we had somebody that was taking all the service calls. They were also doing the sales assistant roles, and they were also doing like trailing docs. They were doing underwriting. They were doing all these different things, right? And it was a lot. Now that person is only doing sales. In essence, they're really only doing marketing. They're not even binding their own business. So when you start understanding that they're gonna have a hybrid role, and it's okay to have somebody that's got 1 foot in here, 1 foot out there, that's just how it's going to be. But as you grow and as you bring more team members, the productivity hack is to take 5 different activities that they're doing and distill that down to 1 or 2.
No, I think that I'm thinking of my VA when I first brought her on. She was my first employee, and it was like I had her doing certificates, running marketing reports, trying to do quoting, looking at customer data. Oh, my God. I mean, every task you could think of. But, as I added the second person, I'm kind of like, took like 1 or 2 things off her plate, but I could see how that could happen as you grow, is to try to like have the specific service people not doing a million things. I think that's great advice.
Yep, and it never changes. I mean, higher the level, bigger the devil. Like it's the same. The principle still works, right? It works with my own role. Yeah. Candidly, it works with you. It's like, okay, I'm doing 10 different things. Now, how do I distill that down to where it's only 6? How do I distill it down to it's only 4? And how do I distill that down to where I'm living in my zone of genius, right? And with a team, you get to do that.
I assume that this mentality too will bring me into my next question I wanted to ask, and that was about the partnership. I assume with the 3 partners, including yourself, you figured out who does, like you said, the one partner is very good at sales. You love the team building, all of this. Talk to us about the partnership, and as you've developed that partnership over the years, what's worked well, what you've learned over the years of having a partnership, and different things like that.
It's tough, man. Partnerships are tough. They're just tough. I think our greatest strength is we have partners, and the reason that we're having the success that we're having is because there's 3 of us, and we have a really good relationship. And so I'm a big proponent of partners, but I'm also, you want to give transparency, because I know what it's like to be in a situation where you have partners, and you listen to a podcast and everybody says, oh yeah, you have empathy and understanding and all this stuff, which is great. You do need all that, but also I also want to tell you that, man, dude, like it's a human being, and we have conflicts as human beings. Like that's just how it is. Like I love my wife more than anything else on this planet, but we fight. Like we fight, we have conflicts, we have situations where we don't see eye to eye, right? Our intentions are good. We're going after the same thing, but we may have a different vantage point. We may have a different perspective. And the level of which my marriage is measured on a success is based upon my ability to cope and deal and understand and navigate those conflicts, in my opinion. And I think a partnership is no different. And so to have the idea that the one or the other is better or worse is not true. You just have to ask yourself the question: Are you willing to wave the white flag sometimes when you don't think you should? Are you willing to submit an idea and spend a bunch of money for 6-8 months, even though you know it's not going to work, but you want to give that person the opportunity to have their space? Are you worried more about the battle instead of the war? Right? Like there have been multiple times where I'm sure it's the other way around, where I had an idea or I want to do something and they knew that it wasn't the right move, and they gave me space to be able to do it. And the same thing is true. I've had multiple situations that have come up, even from a standpoint of like, hey, we're going to structure this differently, or comp or this. And I'm just like, from a math perspective, this doesn't make sense. However, we needed to go through that process, and they needed to see it in order to realize that, okay, this isn't the right way to do it. It's like, if you're so worried about being right and you're have your grip on control, you're just going to have a really hard time with partners because it has nothing to do with your partner. It has everything to do with you. And I'm talking to myself in general too. Like, right? I move fast and I want to do a lot of things, and I probably bite off more than I can chew, and God bless them for understanding me and giving me space to do that. And I hope I do the same for them. But I love them dearly, and I think that they are we're the engine. This is a 3-part stool, and none of us would be able to stand up if it wasn't for each other. So that's our power. But our threat, usually, and this is just in general, our threat is usually right next to our power, right? Like our biggest attribute of success is usually right next to our biggest vulnerability. And I think partnerships are just like that. You have the ability to go really fast, but you also have the ability to derail fast if relationships go bad. And I'll give you another example. Like, you scratch startup. I don't know if anybody's listened to this and they can relate, but like, it's hard to split a pie that has nothing in it, right? You're going to split 3 ways, something that you don't have anything. Like, we're scratch startup and we got 3 mouths to feed. If you were scratch startup, would you go hire 2 employees? No, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. So in the beginning, that was a vulnerability for us. That was a threat. It was extremely difficult. And sometimes you look over and say, shit, man, this is too hard. Like, this is too much. The reason we're not having success is because there's 3 of us. But now I can tell you, to the other side, we had no choice. We had to get big. People say, oh, it doesn't matter how size you are. Yep. BS. Like, it does matter. That's why you open an agency. If you don't care what size you are, go be a producer. Like, it does matter because it gives you freedom. It gives you choices. It gives you flexibility. It gives you everything that you wanted, and that's the reason you opened your shop. But we had no choice but to get big because we were chopping it 3 ways. And so it pushed us to get to the point where we could segment our responsibilities in our zone of genius and our expertise. And now we're able to do things that people just can't do because there's 3 of us. There's so many projects going. There's so much innovation happening. There's so many initiatives. It's just at such a high level, at such a ridiculous fast pace because there's 3 of us. But in the beginning,
It's leverage.
It was not good. But now it's leverage, if that makes sense. So we knew that we got to get to the size where we're using it to our advantage because right now at this size, it's working against us. If that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think having the leverage with the 3 partners that makes total sense.
Totally.
Yeah, Brett, you talked about that one individual that's in your agency that showed up at the book club, and then nothing was going on. They 7 months without compensation. You mentioned they were building an agency under your umbrella. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, so we've got a program that we launched about 2 years ago. It's been in the lab. Really haven't marketed it at all. But I guess we're to that point now. So we built. We wanted to build something that we didn't have. In essence, I told you what we had done to start, and I have a lot of stories that I won't share on air on that. We're here because of that, no doubt. But also, in an essence, I don't think any human being should have to go through that. It's not a normal situation. It's not a recipe to have major success, in my opinion. The amount of friction and the amount of challenge and the amount of just asinine, there's just does not make logical senseness to that. It's just not something normal person would sign up for. And, once you get down the road so far, you're not going to turn back. So it's like, ignorance is a beautiful bliss. But we looked at each other and said, our goal was always to create a path to unlimited for ourselves first. That's what we were looking for. But also, after we do that, to give opportunities for other people to change their lives, to be able to make a true impact on their family and their kids and anybody else behind them. I truly believe that this business allows you to make legacy wealth. And we had to prove that to ourselves first, but after that, it was always the intention to be able to give people that opportunity. And, again, that came from the network marketing space. That's what attracted me to that space and be able to do that. We wanted to be able to do the same thing here. So we looked at what we did and how we did it and what were the challenges and what were the good. And we said, what if we could give – the problem in this business when you're a scratch startup is you don't have scale. If I could narrow it down to one thing, that's it. You don't have scale. And you don't have it for a very long time. What is scale? It's optimal efficiency. It is how much input are you putting out versus how much output you're getting. And when you have scale, you're putting in the same amount of input and you're getting exponential output. And as you scale, that becomes more efficient and more efficient and more efficient. And that comes from marketing, that comes from your sales, that comes from your tech, that comes from your team, that comes from your recruiting ability, that comes from segmentation of roles, it comes from carrier access, it comes from everything within your agency. You don't have scale. And what we've noticed at this point in the game is we have scale. And when you have scale, it's just like, it's not fair. It's just so imbalanced in regards to how much easier it is to do what you want to do. So we said, okay, what does that look like, and how would we give people scale immediately? How could we give ourselves scale if we were to go back and do it? And so we've designed a program, in essence, to be able to give people the opportunity to be their own independent operator. In essence, open up their own agency, have a majority stake in that business. We're a minority partner, and be able to operate inside the framework of the Erb and Young brand, and be able to have basically, in essence, a shared expense model that's prorated based upon someone's size, that gives them all the same expense ratios that we have for them, even if they're a one-man, two-man shop, giving them scale, but just at a lower volume-driven perspective. And we're having a lot of success with that. We launched it, again, a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's been in the lab for a long time with just, people that are smarter than me in regards to drawing everything up. And, we've seen, these particular three guys have a lot of success. One of them was a scratch startup. One of them bought a book. The other one just went out, bought a small agency and a book. Another one was a conversion. It was, in essence, we just brought one on last month. They were an agency owner. They built $100K in revenue. They hit a plateau. They're looking to go to the next level. They converted over to an Erb and Young office. And so there's a lot of different ways and shapes and form it comes. But in essence, what it is people reach these layers of achievement that they have a hard time getting through. And usually that is because they've maxed out their capacity at that point in time. And so we've built a program to basically give people scale at whatever level that they're at, and get past those plateaus that we had. And we just, we didn't necessarily have that when we were coming through the trenches.
That's incredible. That's incredible that you're giving those people that opportunity. Well, we're definitely going to have to do a Brett Young part 2, because there is so much more that I wanted to get into. But Brett, we're looking to wrap this up, and really just thank you very much for taking the time. For those who might want to reach out to you, or I know you got the podcast, talk about your podcast or how to get in touch with you, for those who might want to.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm super active on Instagram. I love Instagram, man. I think it's real. I think it's genuine. And, it's not, I'm very active on LinkedIn too. So please find me on LinkedIn. Find me on Instagram. Yes, it's Brett Young, and I am not a country singer, so don't follow me there. But yeah, so it's Brett Young. I'm in Orlando. But yeah, those are the two places to reach out and connect. Social media is just such a cool, powerful way to connect with agents from across the country. And then we do have a podcast. It's the Be Extraordinary Podcast. The Be Extraordinary Podcast. It's beextraordinarypodcast.com. You can go to the website. There's a free community that you could join with a bunch of awesome professionals that just share really cool content. It's free. It's just a way to rally the community. And it's, in essence, it's a lifestyle. It's a philosophy that says living at excellence. It's not just insurance driven. It's professionals in all different industries from all over the country who live by this and live by this mantra. So yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody that wants to chat. I just want to tell you guys, I have the utmost respect for both of you. Sean, we've connected on social before we met today, and I love what you do. I have a genuine affinity for young talent in this business that are crushing it and doing cool things. And Steven, when we had our call, I knew that there was something really special there. I just love your story. I love everything you're doing and where you're at when you cycle, and I just have a tremendous amount of respect for your bravery and your courage and your skill. So I just wanted to say to you guys and everybody that's listening, I humbly appreciate the opportunity to share a message that I think would have been really important for us along our journey, to know that, hey man, there's a lot of light at the end of this tunnel, and sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Yep, and that's exactly why we do this, so I appreciate you saying that. And I'm not kidding, we're going to have to do a part 2, because there's a lot of good stuff there. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.